Yes, sir. I can hear you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Today we started accounts payable and we figured some steps. So define tolerance groups for vendors, right? Below the step, write down tolerance groups for vendors. Tolerance groups for vendors are the upper limits. Are the upper limits below which or equal to which the residual balances or the payment differences are automatically transferred to some revenue account or expense account. Some revenue account or expense account. That means what? Say, for example, we purchase some material from a vendor, right? Invoice amount is 10,000 rupees, right? So vendor said, if we make the payment to him in 10 days, he will give us 3% cash discount. So we are making the payment to vendor in 10 days, but we receive 3% cash discount, right? So at the time of making the payment, we have reduced the cash discount amount and we have made the payment for 9,700. Actually, invoice amount is 10,000. The amount paid is 9,700. So this 300 rupees is basically payment difference. So this payment difference, you need to pay later on or you need not pay. You need not pay because 300 is a cash discount, right? So in that case, when the payment difference is 300 rupees, right? The system will take this 300 rupees automatically to cash discount received account. For that, we define some upper limits. These upper limits are called tolerance groups for vendors. Transaction code OBA3. Transaction code is not there. Add the transaction code OBA3. Click on new address. Just a minute. Company code SSKV. Tolerance group blank. Name is equal to blank tolerance group for SSKV. Now write down under permitted payment differences. It is not there. Just write down below the text. Under permitted payment differences, gain is 1,000 rupees. Under permitted payment differences, gain is equal to 1,000 rupees. Loss is equal to 1,000 rupees. Click on save. Write down the table name. Table name T043G. T043G. So here, if the payment difference is equal to 1,000 or less than 1,000, right, that will be transferred to cash discount received account. But in order to enable the system to transfer that payment difference to the cash discount received account, we have to do some other settings. Those settings I will show you. Then creation of 2 GL accounts. So again, we have to create some GL accounts in general ledger accounting, and these GL accounts related to accounts payable. When we purchase the raw material, what is the entry we have to post? Inventory of raw material account data to vendor account. So vendor account is vendor master record, right? Then inventory of raw material account is a GL account. So we have to create this inventory of raw material account in the general ledger account. So we have an account group. First, we have to identify the account. So inventory of raw material account is part of your current assets, loans, and advances. So I'm creating under this account. Defined the number ranges 2,100,000 to 2,199,000. So I'm taking 2,120,000. GL account is equal to 2,120,000. Company code is equal to SSKV. Go to menu GL account, create. The account group is current assets, loans, and advances. Select balanced account. Select balanced account. Short text is equal to inventory of raw material account. Short text is equal to inventory of raw material account. GL account long text is also inventory of raw material account. Go to control data tab. Account currency INR. Select to only balances in local currency. Select to line item display. Start key 001. Then go to create bank interest tab. Field status group G001. Click on save. Now, creation of sundry creditors account as reconciliation account. See, if you remember, right? Yesterday, we have created vendor account groups. In the vendor account groups, we have selected one field, reconciliation account as required entry. So, why we have selected that reconciliation account as required entry and what is the meaning of that reconciliation account? Now, I am going to explain you now. Reconciliation accounts. It is the control account maintained in the general ledger to post all the business transactions affected in the sub-ledger accounts. That is vendor accounts. Here, accounts payable, accounts receivables, and asset accounting. They are called subsidiary ledgers. Vendor accounts, I mean individual vendor accounts, individual customer accounts, individual asset accounts. They are called sub-ledger accounts, right? So here, in the subsidiary ledgers, we maintain the details of the business transactions with the sub-ledger accounts. And the summary of these business transactions is also to be maintained in the general ledger because the total information required to prepare your P&L account and balance sheet is taken from the general ledger accounting only. That's why when we post any purchase invoice or payment or purchase return in any of the individual vendor accounts, that has to be updated in the general ledger accounting in the reconciliation account. It is the control account maintained in the general ledger to post all the business transactions affected in the sub-ledger accounts, that is vendor accounts. It is used to know the total amount of the vendors payable by the company at any point of time. And the figure to be represented in the balance sheet is taken from this account. Means what? Say, for example, you have two vendors, vendor X, vendor Y. So when you purchase the raw material from the vendor X, that is posted to credit side of vendor by raw materials 10,000. And out of this 10,000 invoice, you are paid only 5,000 rupees. When you make the payment to vendor, that payment is posted to debit side of vendor account. Because when the payment is made to vendor, the entry posted is debit vendor account, credit bank account, right? So we are paid 5,000 rupees out of the 10,000 amount of invoice, then that is posted to debit side of vendor account. Then vendor Y. From the vendor Y, we purchased raw materials 25,000, out of which we paid 15,000. So still you have to pay 10,000 to the vendor X, vendor Y, and 5,000 to the vendor X. Now, assuming that these are only the two vendors we are having, and in every vendor account, there is one purchase invoice and one payment. Now, I want to know what is the total amount of payables by your company as of now. I want to know what is the total amount you have to pay to all the vendors together. For that, what we do? First, we balance the vendor X. In the vendor X account, credit is 10,000, debit is 5,000. So still you have to pay 5,000 to the vendor X. Then in the vendor Y, credit is 25,000, debit is 15,000. Means still you have to pay 10,000 to the vendor Y. So to vendor X, you have to pay 5,000. To vendor Y, you have to pay 10,000. So total, how much you have to pay? 15,000. So what we are doing here, we are balancing the individual vendor accounts, and these balances are added together to find the total amount of payables, right? Now, let us extend this example. You have 500 vendors, right? Then your accounting year has started from 1/4/2022. So from 1/4/2022 to till today, 15th September 2022, in every vendor account, we have posted number of invoices, number of full payments and part payments. That means in every vendor account, there are hundreds of debits and credits. In that case, if you want to know what is the total amount of payables by your company now, what you have to do? You have to go on balancing every individual vendor account, and these individual account balances are to be added for 500 vendors. Tell me how much time you take? We don't know. Definitely take a lot of time. But your accounts manager or your finance manager wants to know what is the total amount payable by now immediately, because he wants to know some financial decision. For that purpose, right? He wants to take some financial decision. For that purpose, he wants to know the total amount of payables by the company immediately. So how that is made possible, right? For that, we create one GL account in the general ledger accounting with the name sundry creditors account or total payables account as a reconciliation account. So see, we create one GL account, sundry creditors account or total payables account. Then we make some settings whereby when we post any purchase invoice or payment or purchase return in any of the individual vendor account, the sundry creditors reconciliation account is automatically updated in the general ledger. See, we create one GL account, sundry creditors account in the general ledger. Then we make some settings whereby when we post any invoice or any payment or any purchase return in any of the individual vendor account and accounts payable, then your GL account in the general ledger, sundry creditors is automatically updated. You cannot post manually into these accounts. So when you post buy raw materials in the vendor X account, that is also posted to credit side of sundry creditors. When you post the payment to vendor X, that is also posted to debit side of sundry creditors. When you post buy raw materials in the vendor Y account, that is also posted to credit side of sundry creditors. When you post to bank in the vendor account, to vendor Y account, it is also posted to debit side of sundry creditors. So it's like that. Every business transaction we post in the individual vendor accounts is automatically updated in the sundry creditors account, and it is maintained in the general ledger account, right? So if you go to FAGLB 03 or FS 10, the system will display the balance 15,000. You may have 5,000 vendors, no issues. Now, one more thing is, in the sundry creditors account, when you see buy raw materials, you can understand material was purchased, but from whom? When you see to bank, you can understand that you have made the payments to vendors, but to whom you have made the payments. So that information is also required for each line item. That means the line items have to be maintained according to vendor number. See, till now we have been using the sort key 001 for every GL account, right? Now for the sundry creditors account, the sort key will be 012. 012 means vendor number. So for the sundry creditors reconciliation account, sort key will be 012. So that is the meaning of the reconciliation account. It is the control account maintained in the general ledger to post all the business transactions affected in the sub-ledger accounts, that is vendor accounts. It is used to know the total amount of the vendors payable by the company at any point of time. And the figure to be represented in the balance sheet is taken from this account. And we cannot post directly into these accounts. Clear, no? So sundry creditors is part of your current liabilities, right? So we have an account group, current liabilities and provisions. From account is 1,500,000 to account is 1,599,000. Just like that, I'm taking 1,505,000. GL account is equal to 1,505,000. Company code is equal to SSKV. Go to menu GL account create. Under type and description, the account group is current liabilities and provisions. Account group is current liabilities and provisions. Select balanced account. Short text is equal to sundry creditors account. GL account long text is also sundry creditors account. Go to control data tab. Account currency INR. And we should not select only balances in local currency for reconciliation account. It's a system requirement. Underline this point. Then, how the system knows that 1,505,000 is the reconciliation account? See, reconciliation account for account type vendors. So that's how system understands that it is the reconciliation account for accounts payable. Then select line item display. Sort key 012. 012 means vendor. Write down there. Normally, in the real time, we don't select line item display. Normally in the real time, we don't maintain, we don't select line item display, and we don't maintain sort key for the reconciliation accounts because of the large volume of line items. Because of the large volumes of line items. See, here, look at the screen. We should not set the indicator for accounts where line item display dialog does not make sense due to the number of postings. These include tax accounts, receivables, and payables. But here I'm selecting just to make you understand the impact of sort, nothing else. Then go to create bank interest tab. Field status group G067. So always for reconciliation accounts, compulsory we have to use G067. Click on C. So we have created the sundry creditors account as a reconciliation account for vendors. Reconciliation account for account type vendors, right? Then creation of vendor master record. Write down here, some space is there. Please write down. We can create the vendor master record only for FI or only for MM or both for FI and MM at a time. Both for FI and MM at a time. We can create the vendor master record. We can create the vendor master record only for FI in the transaction code FK01. In the transaction code FK01.
Sir, FK01.
FK. F for French. K means,
Okay.
K means Karnataka. FK01. Here we can maintain the data. Here we can maintain the data in the general data segment and the company code segment. And company code segment. Next, we can create the vendor master record only for MM. Only for MM. In the
We can
transaction
create, sir.
vendor
Please.
master record, we can create vendor master record only for MM in MK01. MK01. Here, we can maintain the data in the general data segment and purchase data segment. And purchase data segment. Next, we can create the vendor master record. We can create the vendor master record both for FI and MM in the transaction code XK01. In the transaction code XK01. There, we can maintain the data in the general data segment company code data segment. There we can maintain the data in the general data segment, company code data segment, and the purchase data segment at a time. So here it is the end user transaction code XK01. Company code is equal to SSKV. Account group is equal to SSKV. So we are creating the vendors for raw materials. So those master records are created under this account. Account group SSKV. Click on enter. Title is equal to company. Name is equal to Aki and Company. Name of the vendor, nothing else. Now here you can maintain the street name, house number, postal code, city of the vendor. That means here you can maintain the address of the vendor. Here we are not maintaining any address, but country we have to maintain. Country is equal to IN. Look at this. Here you can maintain the post box number of the vendor, postal code of the vendor, then communication information, telephone number, extension, mobile number, fax number, email address, all these things we can maintain. So why the system is displaying these fields? Because in the vendor master record, in the vendor account group, SSKV, in the general data segment, all these fields were selected as optional entry. Right? Now, click on next skin button thrice. It's not thrice, make it as 4 times. Not thrice, 4 times. Here we click on the next skin button 4 times in the training class only. This is called next skin button. So if you click on the next skin button for the first time, right, it will take you on screen wherein you can maintain the the other details of the vendor, tax information, VAT registration number, type of business, right? Then date of birth, sex, place of birth, profession, etc., etc. All this information is maintained in the vendor master record if applicable. If applicable. So here we don't have all this information, right? Then click on next entry button. Here you can maintain the bank information of the vendor. Country of the bank, bank key means IFSC code, bank account number, account holder name. So all this information is maintained in the real time. And this bank information is necessary to make the payments to vendors through bank transfers. So here we don't have all this information. That's why we are skipping it. Then click on next screen button third time. Here you can maintain the contact person information of the vendor. Suppose you are purchasing iron and steel from Tata Steels. So in the Tata Steel sales department, with whom you have to transact always, that is called contact person of the vendor. So his name can be maintained. And if necessary, we can also maintain the visiting hours of the vendor contact person. Then click on next screen button fourth time. So here company code. From now onwards, it is the company code data. Look at the scheme. Reconciliation code is a mandatory field. If you remember, in the SSKV account group, we have selected reconciliation code as required entry, right? So when we are creating the master record for the vendor under that account group, reconciliation account field is mandatory field. Reconciliation account is 1,05,005. Now, in this vendor account, Aki and Company, we have assigned the reconciliation account 1,05,005, right? As a result, from now onwards, when we post any business transaction, either purchase or payment or purchase return in this vendor account, this account is also automatically updated. These are the connections. What is first one? We have created the 1,05,005 as reconciliation account, and the reconciliation account is assigned in the vendor master record. Clear? Then sort key 012, cash managed group A1, within brackets, domestic vendors. Cash managed group is equal to A1, within brackets, domestic vendors or domestic payments. Write down. Every vendor account and customer accounts are to be assigned with cash management groups. The cash management groups are used by the treasury management module, in the cash planning. So this is for the purpose of treasury management, but we have to assign one cash management group. And these cash management groups were already defined the system. A1 means domestic payments, means the payments are arranged in the company called local currency. Then click on next screen button. Other fields we see later on. Click on next screen button. Payment terms 001. So payment terms determines the credit period. So payment terms 001 means payment immediate. This payment terms was already defined in the system. So 001 means payment immediate due net. Why we are entering 001 in the vendor master record? Because this vendor always requires the payment immediately. This vendor always requires the payment immediately. That's why we are assigning the payment terms in the master record. Then tolerance group blank means, if you remember, just now we have defined the tolerance group blank with the gain amount of 1,000 rupees, loss amount 1,000 rupees, right? And we are keeping this tolerance group blank. So those upper limits are applicable to this vendor as far as payment difference are concerned. Then select check double invoice. Right down there. By selecting this checkbox, the system will verify. If any invoice is posted 2 times by mistake. If any invoice is posted 2 times by mistake, and it gives the warning message. By comparing invoice number and the amount of the invoice. By comparing the invoice number and amount of the invoice. Means sometimes what happens, the user may be posting the same invoice second time by mistake, right? In that case, it gives the warning message. So how the system knows that this invoice was already posted? For that, the system compares invoice number and also invoice amount. So where we can enter the invoice number, I will show you while posting the invoice. Click on see, vendor was created with the number 17003021. This is the number range we have assigned for the account group SSKV. So let us create one more vendor account. Same procedure. Company code SSKV, account group SSKV. Click on enter. Title is equal to company. Name is equal to Bommai and Company. Country is equal to IM. Click on next screen button 4 times. See, here also reconciliation account is mandatory. Like that, in every vendor account, we assign the reconciliation account. Sort key 012. Cash management group A1. Click on next screen button 3 times. Sorry, 1 time. Payment terms will be 01. Tolerance group blank. Select check double invoice. Click on see 17003022 was created. So remaining things you will see tomorrow because I need to go out on some work, right? So remaining things you will see tomorrow. And if you have any other questions also, please ask them in tomorrow's class.